This is America at a precipice tonight. This is an important night. Tonight, all elected officials in Washington, D.C. have an opportunity, but more importantly, an obligation to protect your rights, uphold the values of our Constitution on every important issue that we now face. We have people on the left in this country, Democrats in this case, they're putting politics first. Sadly, the country and the Constitution second. I'll explain in detail. Running roughshod over the whole principle that we all hold dear, the presumption of innocence. We have many on the left convicting Judge Kavanaugh tonight of one of the most serious crimes, implying he doesn't even have a right to be heard or believed. Zero presumption of innocence, zero due process, a despicable, disgusting rush to judgment, what is born out of pure partisan politics, and we will prove our point tonight. And now as Senate Republicans attempt to investigate these serious allegations, they are being stonewalled, they are being blocked at every corner, even after every single right consideration is being offered to Professor Ford tonight. All of this is to obstruct, disrupt, upend justice in America. It is the left's playbook to destroy the Trump agenda. And on Monday, the president ordered important FISA documents declassified, as is his constitutional right. Again tonight, he is facing not only a wave of obstructionism, Democrats, they seem to want to precipitate an absolute constitutional showdown. They are openly defying the president's constitutional powers. They don't want government transparency. They don't want government accountability. They don't want to see that what they've been doing behind the back revealed. All right, stay tuned. We also have a big announcement at the end of the show tonight, but it's time for our breaking news opening monologue. All right, we are now on day 7 of the controversy that is swirling around the confirmation of Judge Brett Kavanaugh. A professor from Northern California named Professor Christine Ford is accusing Judge Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct from when they were both in high school, 1982. I have said many, many times on this program, these allegations must be taken seriously. Senate Republicans are doing just that tonight. They have delayed this week's confirmation vote. They have reopened the hearings. They have invited Professor Ford to tell her story before the committee, open or closed door session. They have reached out by phone, by email, and more for background. They are handling this with the utmost care and professionalism, as they should. And the Senate Judiciary Committee has even offered to fly their staff anywhere in the United States to meet with Professor Ford for a private interview. And on Monday, Professor Ford's attorney told fake news CNN that her client would testify under oath, that she wanted to tell her story publicly. We have the videotape. Take a look.
Will your client, Christine Ford, be willing to testify in public to the Judiciary Committee?
The answer is yes.
But here we are 2 days later. Professor Ford is refusing even an invitation to testify. She now is demanding through her lawyer, she wants a full FBI investigation into her claims first. And of course, the U.S. Senate, they don't control the FBI or what they choose to investigate. Advise and consent. It is the constitutional role of the United States Senate, not the FBI. Also, we know the FBI has stated publicly the allegation does not involve any federal crime. Now, the Senate can only perform their own probe. And unfortunately, they are now tonight being stonewalled. Politics is in play. And as of tonight, Dianne Feinstein, she will not even show Senate Republicans on the committee the full, unredacted letter that Professor Ford sent to Democrats when she first made her allegations in July. And now, according to the Judiciary Committee Chairman, Charles Grassley, the letter to Ford's attorneys, the committee, they're having a hard time reaching Ford. Quote, committee staff has attempted to contact you directly by phone, email several times to schedule a call at a convenient time for you and your client. We thus far have not heard back from you with regard to that request. And Grassley's letter also reiterated the invitation to appear before Congress. Quote, "You have stated repeatedly that Dr. Ford wants to tell her story. I sincerely hope that Dr. Ford will accept my invitation to do so, either privately or publicly on Monday." And despite every effort from Republicans to accommodate Professor Ford, which I think is the right thing to do, her attorney is calling Monday's hearing, quote, "not fair nor in good faith." And earlier today, Senator John Kennedy expressed his frustration. Watch this.
We've done everything we can to try to accommodate Dr. Ford. Either her or her lawyers keep moving the goalposts, which is a little frustrating.
And Senator Susan Collins of Maine, who I don't always agree with, she is saying that it's not fair for either Professor Ford not to testify on Monday. She said it's not fair to either side. Take a listen.
I think it's not fair to Judge Kavanaugh for her not to come forward and testify. Both of them need to testify under oath next Monday before the Judiciary Committee.
Now, Senator Collins is right. It is so important to note the senator's time frame is identical to the time frame that Joe Biden set up when the left did this to Clarence Thomas. It's important that we hear from Professor Ford, but also Judge Kavanaugh deserves the presumption of innocence. And by the way, considering it was 36 years ago, well, we have 36 years of his life, and people should be able to testify about his treatment of women over nearly 4 decades. Classmates, colleagues, ex-girlfriends, female law clerks, any of the 65 women who signed the letter supporting his outstanding character, people that knew him back in 1982. It's important that America get this right. This is something the president rightly emphasized earlier today. Take a listen.
I really would want to see what she has to say, but I want to give it all the time they need. They've already given it time. They've delayed a major hearing. There's no more just about, look, when I first decided to run, everybody said the single most important thing you do is a Supreme Court justice, okay? We've all heard that many times about a president. I would say this. I think he's an extraordinary man. I think he's a man of great intellect, as I've been telling you, and he has an unblemished record. This is a very tough thing for him and his family, and we want to get it over with. At the same time, we want to give tremendous amounts of time. If she shows up, that would be wonderful. If she doesn't show up, that would be unfortunate.
Now, like every American, Judge Kavanaugh deserves the presumption of innocence. It's his constitutional right. This is not a game. Sadly, it's obvious tonight the left is playing politics, trying to derail Kavanaugh's nomination, even if it means unfairly impugning his character, forever rushing to judgment. Watch this.
Well, it's definitely attempted rape. I don't see it any other way.
I think it's appalling. And I'm totally disappointed that all these people who have come forward to say, oh, we should hear from her, and now that she's expecting a modicum of fairness so she's not re-victimized, are now saying, well, if she doesn't want to testify, we should just go ahead. That is additional callousness from my colleagues that I am totally appalled by.
When I see with what the Senate Republicans are doing today, you know, yesterday they seemed a little tentative and nervous, and today in insisting and even in a bullying manner that Dr. Ford proceed with the hearing on Monday, I think they're trying to scare her.
Well, I think what the Republicans doing is outrageous. They are creating a false choice. They are trying to bully her into testifying on Monday before a full FBI background check is completed.
I think that she is the one who is taking tremendous risk in coming forward, and I think she's saying, let me just have a fair shot at this. Don't put me in front of a bunch of men on the Judiciary Committee who have already predetermined what the outcome should be.
That would be the left. People said from day one, Chuck Schumer said from day one, he will stop him whatever needs to happen. You know, so the so-called least funny comedian on television, Joyless Behar, she even took it a step further. This is really dangerous. Take a listen.
This is what I grew up with, that men are supposed to protect you from these predatory males.
I do too.
And they're not doing that.
And believe you.
On the contrary,
but we have
these people in Congress right now, in that Senate Judiciary Committee, these white men, old, by the way, are not protecting women. They're protecting a man who is probably guilty. If you're not Judge Kavanaugh, take the lie detector test.
Yeah.
Prove it the way she did and the way Anita Hill did, that they were not lying. Let's see that from you. Or are you a coward?
Yeah.
No presumption of innocence. This is sad. And sadly, Democrats everywhere are echoing what you just heard from Joyless Behar. Take a listen.
This woman is to be believed, and you can believe Dr. Ford. This was attempted rape, and this is a woman who exhibits, Dr. Ford, courage, but the classic signs of post-traumatic stress.
I believe her. Listen, first of all, anybody who comes forward at this point to be prepared to testify in the United States Senate against someone who's being nominated to one of the most powerful positions in the United States government, that takes an extraordinary amount of courage.
Not only do women like Dr. Ford, who bravely comes forward, need to be heard, but they need to be believed. They need to be believed.
Let me just say right at the outset, I believe Dr. Ford. I believe the survivor here. There's every reason to believe her. She has come forward courageously and bravely.
Does anyone give the chance that maybe you can believe Judge Kavanaugh? The Constitution be damned? Maybe we should just lock him up. Throw away the key from what happened in 1982. One person. All these other people say just the opposite about Judge Kavanaugh. How about due process? How about listening to both sides? This is what Democrats are willing to do, sadly tonight, if it means obstructing the nomination of Judge Kavanaugh. And his children are watching, in case you're interested, and his wife. In fact, Democrats, they don't even want a serious investigation into these allegations. You just heard what Senator Gillibrand just said. They just want Kavanaugh blocked, whatever it takes. Kirsten Gillibrand herself, she's not even interested in a hearing from Kavanaugh next week. Doesn't even want to hear what he has to say. Take a listen.
It's a sham hearing, and I don't think she should participate in it.
So she and the rest of her Democratic colleagues have ulterior motives. Now it's starting to backfire. Americans are catching on. They know that Dianne Feinstein sat on Ford's accusations for weeks. This is back in July. She had this information. She never asked Kavanaugh about it during many private meetings with him, during his public testimony. Written questions, over 1,300 questions, not one about this, but they knew about it. Now, all of a sudden, according to Dianne Feinstein, Senator Gillibrand, other Democrats, this is so pressing, Kavanaugh's confirmation must be derailed, regardless of whether or not the accuser ever even comes forward and tells her story. In a letter to Senator Feinstein today, Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley, he summed up the situation best. He said, sexual assault allegations should not be deployed strategically for political gain. He's right. And what we're seeing right now is just another sad chapter in what is sadly the Democrats' predictable playbook. We see it every election year, 2 and 4 years. Republicans are racist, sexist, misogynistic, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic. They want dirty air and water. They want to kill children. And they want Paul Ryan lookalikes to throw Granny over the cliff. You see it every election season. And also during every confirmation hearing, just like you're seeing now. Smears, slander, lies, character assassination. No due process, no presumption of innocence, conviction by allegation. And of course, we have every reason to be skeptical tonight. This is the same party of Keith Ellison. See that guy right there? Well, he just got his party's nomination to run for the Attorney General in the great state of Minnesota, all while this is happening currently. His ex-girlfriend is accusing him of domestic, physical, and emotional abuse. She tweeted this week that the Democratic Party did not believe her claims, despite what is out there, including a doctor's report that she had told in 2017 indicating abuse. Instead, she tweeted the DNC, quote, smeared, threatened, and isolated her. So where are these same Democratic senators demanding FBI investigations into him? And this is not 36 years ago. This is today. This is the same Democratic Party of Senator Sherrod Brown. He walks the halls of Congress despite domestic abuse accusations made by his ex-wife. For some reason, she politically supports him, but the record is the record. And don't forget Professor Ford's attorney. We cannot ignore her record. Deborah Katz, as a longtime Democratic activist, she's donated tens of thousands of dollars to Democrats. But more importantly, her track record in previous cases on issues of sexual misconduct allegations when they were made. Well, let's show you what she said about Paula Jones. Paula Jones' suit is very, very weak. She's alleged one incident that took place in a hotel room that, by her testimony, lasted 10 to 12 minutes. She suffered no repercussions in the workplace. The allegation was that Bill Clinton pulled down his pants and told her to perform a sex act. And then she said of Jones's accusation, quote, clearly a one-time incident that took place in 10 to 12 minutes. She was not forced to have sex. She left on her own volition. The courts increasingly are finding that this is not enough to create a sexually hostile work environment. On top of that, Katz also defended creepy Senator Al Franken. Quote, context is relevant. He did not do this as a member of the Senate. He did this in his capacity of someone who was still functioning as an entertainer. But he was a senator at the time he did it. Now, this is highly, bitterly partisan. An attorney who clearly, obviously has inconsistent views on this topic to advance a political agenda. It's sad. And of course, no Democrats ever demanded an FBI investigation into Paula Jones. She won a settlement, by the way, of $850,000. Juanita Broderick accused Bill Clinton of rape. Kathleen Willey accused Bill Clinton of groping, grabbing, fondling, touching against her will. Yet many of these same senators that are there today, all sanctimonious, rushing to judgment, selective moral outrage tonight, they lived on all things Clinton. Women that were smeared, slandered by the Clinton machine. Selective moral outrage, obviously pure politics. And as you can see, we have every reason to be skeptical about the Democrats. Otherwise, they'd be saying the same things about Keith Ellison. Otherwise, they'd be saying, okay, where's the FBI investigation into Juanita Broderick's charges? They're playing politics with the Kavanaugh nomination. They're playing politics with government accountability on top of that. You know, the news tonight, we told you Monday, President Trump ordered the Department of Justice to declassify and release unredacted important documents, pages 10 through 12, 17 through 34 of the final FISA renewal application on Carter Page. All FBI reports on Bruce Orr's Russia interviews with Christopher Steele. All reports on Carter Page interviews. Thousands of struck Page texts and Comey and McCabe and Orr and Steele and other people that are involved in this. President is the commander-in-chief. He's also the leader of the executive branch of government, co-equal branches of government, separation of powers. He has the clear constitutional authority in the Constitution to declassify information. Article 2, Section 1 of our Constitution reads, quote, the executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America. The DOJ and the FBI are under the President's executive power. He is in charge, and constitutionally, he alone can determine the issue of classification, not unredacting things. According to the Supreme Court, Navy v. Egan, quote, the authority to declassify and control access to information bearing on national security and to determine flows primarily from this constitutional investment of the power of the President. Both Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton used their authority to declassify information. Obama declassified hundreds of CIA records in 2015. Former President Clinton declassified thousands of confidential documents surrounding the military. But according to top Democrats tonight, President Trump has no authority to declassify these important FISA-related documents. We got Shifty Schiff is calling it an abuse of power that it will put the country at risk. He joined 3 other Democrats demanding to be briefed on the declassification before anything is released to the public. John Brennan and others even calling on bureaucrats bureaucrats to defy the rule of law, the clear intent of the Constitution, and disobey a president's direct executive order on this and not release the documents. That will precipitate a massive constitutional crisis as they try to take power constitutionally away from your elected president. This is extraordinarily dangerous. Watch this.
It's a terrible precedent to have a president trying to make his own personal defense by playing with intelligence.
This is quite lawless of the president to selectively declassify. You know, he's only putting forward to the American people what he believes helps him, completely and recklessly risking sources and methods who could be put at risk and have their lives at risk.
I think Christopher Wray, Director of FBI, and Dan Coates, Director of National Intelligence, as well as Rod Rosenstein, who is overseeing this investigation, should push back against any directive that is going to have negative impact on our capabilities, as well as the investigation. So I think they should continue to push. If Mr. Trump and the White House does not relent, well, then I think they have some decisions to make, whether or not they're going to just not follow that direction and be fired, or to resign. But if they really believe that this is going to have serious impact on our national security, law enforcement, and judicial process, they have an obligation, since they took an oath of office, to the Constitution of the United States, not to Mr. Trump.
What you're witnessing here, this is why it's so dangerous. Deep state operatives, they're trying to precipitate a constitutional crisis in the country because they don't want to be exposed. Meanwhile, one former corrupt official is now facing a grand jury investigation. Former Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe. Oh, he's got a new book out in December. And here's the title, The Threat: How the FBI Protects America in the Age of Terror and Trump. Oh, that means to defy the will of the American people, abuse power, use the tools of intelligence against the American people. We have long told you your federal bureaucracy was biased, corrupt, only at the highest levels, not rank and file. A former FBI deputy director. This is the perfect embodiment of this fact. They literally will precipitate a constitutional crisis and try and defy the constitutional authority that is so clear for the president and the executive branch. Now, look. If we want the deep state developments to continue, you got to focus on this election. 48 days from tonight, all we have until this crucial, the most important midterms in our life. There is a glimmer of hope tonight. New poll, only a 4% ballot gap in generic ballot. Earlier this week in Texas, a special state Senate election. Republican beat a Democrat in that district for the first time in 139 years. Ted Cruz is now up by 9 points in the latest polling. 139 years. Look, I'm not confident tonight, 48 days out, the Republicans will keep the House. And I'm not sure they'll hold the Senate. I don't have a crystal ball. We cannot be complacent. The only way that will turn is if you take your responsibility to vote seriously. Do you want the Trump agenda to continue? Do you like the extra money in your paycheck? Is America's economy better off than it was 2 years ago? Are we more secure tonight as a country? Do you want the president you elected to continue on the path of keeping his promises for a better economy, that the forgotten men and women that were left behind in the Obama years, 13 million more people on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty? 48 days, you decide. You get to vote. You have the power. You get to stop this insanity of the left. I hope you're energized. President's getting things done. He's not slowing down. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, Judge Jeanine Pirro, also Tammy Bruce, and a lot more coming up. Joe DeGeneva, straight ahead, and an important announcement. All right, joining us now live where things stand on Capitol Hill concerning Judge Kavanaugh and his accuser. Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry is with us tonight. Ed, a lot of breaking news.
That's right, Sean. Breaking tonight, a new statement from an attorney for Dr. Ford saying she will not testify on Monday. In part, they say, because there are only going to be two witnesses scheduled, Dr. Ford and Judge Brett Kavanaugh. The problem with that approach, of course, is that the other potential witnesses who have come out, other schoolmates of both of them, have said they do not have first knowledge that any such incident happened. So what White House officials believe tonight is that both Dr. Ford's legal team and Democrats on the Hill are trying to move the goalposts. That when she spoke to the Washington Post over the weekend, she said she wanted to be heard. Republican Charles Grassley saying saying tonight he's trying to make sure Dr. Ford is heard on Monday. That's why they want her to testify. Instead, they think that Democrats have pushed this FBI investigation that will never happen as a delaying tactic that will push this past the midterms. The key tonight is that 3 key Republicans who are swing votes, you see them there, Jeff Flake, Bob Corker, Susan Collins, are all saying that Dr. Ford should testify Monday. Corker saying if she doesn't show up, the Senate should move forward and vote on Judge Kavanaugh. Collins, a pivotal woman in the Senate, saying, quote, "It is my understanding the committee has offered to hold either a public or private session, whichever would make Dr. Ford more comfortable." That contradicts a claim by some Democrats today that Dr. Ford is somehow being pressured or forced into testimony. Chairman Grassley making clear he's doing everything to make this as easy as possible. Watch.
Well, where I'm focused right now is doing everything that we can to make Dr. Ford comfortable with coming before our committee, either in an open session or a closed session or a public or a private interviews. That's 4 different ways she can choose to come.
It rings true to me how she's divulged it, who she's divulged it to over time, over many years. That's exactly what happens when someone has this kind of trauma. And so it rings true. And so we need a proper, professional, appropriate review and hearing. And what they are forcing on her right now, I think, is inappropriate.
Now, Senator Mazie Hirono of Hawaii, remember yesterday she said men should, quote, just shut up. She seemed to reveal the Democratic playbook by telling Politico, since Republicans blocked Merrick Garland from the high court for almost a year, if Kavanaugh fails, Democrats may hold this seat open for 2 years beyond the 2020 election. Republicans I spoke to today say that's such an overreach. They think it shows Democrats are getting desperate in this debate, and for the first time, Republicans privately feel good about Kavanaugh's chances in terms of weathering this storm, though nobody's willing to predict that, Sean, because there's been so many twists and turns, and there could be more coming, Sean.
All right, Ed Henry at the White House tonight. Thank you. Joining us now with Reaction, Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce, author, #1 New York Times bestseller, Liars, Leakers, Liberals. Judge Jeanine Pirro is with us. My understanding is that she remembered this in a couples therapy session in 2012, and I'm watching Senator Grassley. They're offering every accommodation, public or private, even though the attorney said, oh, she'd be glad to speak publicly under oath. But they're saying publicly and privately, we'll come to you. And I think it's right to do it that way, actually, myself.
The amazing part of this is they are offering her more than your victim would have in a criminal courtroom. They are offering her privacy. They are almost offering her the ability to dictate who will speak with her and question her. But she is no different than any other victim. What we want to know is the who, how, when, and where. We don't know when it was. We don't know where it was.
She doesn't know the year.
We don't know how she got home. She doesn't know the year. She doesn't. And we don't expect peripheral facts. What we expect is a fundamental recitement of what happened to her. She can't even give us that. But what she wants is more rights than other victims have in criminal courtrooms across the country.
And they have, Senator Grass, they haven't even turned over the unredacted letter from July.
Yeah.
So, and all of a sudden, glad to speak publicly, under oath. Now there's a list of conditions, and it's growing every day. And it's interesting, the timeline is the same as Biden set up for Clarence Thomas.
It sure is. So look, we've heard that song before. The fact is, Dr. Ford and the Democrats have been in complete control of the timing from the beginning, haven't they? Starting with when she decided to reach out to Anna Eshoo and then to Feinstein and the Washington Post hotline. So they've been in control of the timeline. So this argument that she is being bullied and into this rush of a hearing is absurd. And I would posit that, in fact, she has been misled, that Dr. Ford is, in fact, perhaps not in charge of any of this at all. I think she was likely promised something that she wouldn't have to testify. I think Dianne Feinstein thought the accusation alone would knock this nomination off of its seat, and that's what they expected. And she's finding, the doctor is finding, and we're all finding, that they were wrong. And now you know what they're doing? They're infantilizing her, and they are re-victimizing her by saying she's emotionally not prepared, she's being bullied, she can't do it, she's afraid, and the repeated comments about attempted rape, an assault. This woman now, after dealing with this and creating a very strong life, top of her field, a family, a strong woman, is being re-victimized by this entire framework of rhetoric, and we should all be upset by that and certainly offended at the least.
I am worried. Guilt by accusation. I am worried about a rush to judgment. I am worried about no presumption of innocence. I am worried. This will now follow Judge Kavanaugh, just the allegation, for the rest of his life. His young daughter. Do we not give anybody a chance? Oh, I believe her. I will tell everybody, I don't know.
Look,
because I wasn't there, and neither was anyone else.
Every prosecutor understands when you investigate, prosecute, try, and sentence these individuals that everything is at stake. Their civil liberties, their reputation, their character. And what we have here is on the part of the left, they're basically saying, we don't want to have true justice here. We want everyone to believe her from the get-go. But I ask you this, number one, what in Brett Kavanaugh's background suggest in any way, shape, or form that he disrespects women? What in his background, when women who worked for him, dated him, went to school for him, none of this has ever shown up, and they want to accuse him of putting his hand over her mouth, of attempted rape, as if they know what that is. We're not even close to that in terms of the facts that are alleged. And in the end, what we have are accusations, and we should believe them and not give him a right to speak.
And if I could just add, with your whole opening, which was brilliant, what they're also doing is they're saying only a certain kind of woman matters. Only if you pay allegiance to the liberal point of view and the liberal narrative will you be taken seriously. Conservative women do not count. They are making this a partisan issue. Now, if you're facing domestic violence, sexual violence, rape or harassment, that of course transcends politics. And what they're doing is they're dismissing an entire category of American women.
Ellison, their love of Clinton. Is there going to be an FBI investigation for Juanita Broaddus?
Of course not. It's a local crime.
None of these senators have...
That is a local crime. It depends on whether the accused is a Republican or a Democrat. If it's Bill Clinton, he can be accused of rape, sexual assault, and these women shouldn't be believed.
I will say this about the Republicans, and I'm very critical of Republicans. Every accommodation, the president too, every accommodation rightly is being offered.
They've done a very good job in this regard.
But I also will say, Brett Kavanaugh does deserve the presumption of innocence as well.
He's entitled to it.
And
everybody is.
And she can only really be taken seriously, and in our system of the presumption of innocence, works on behalf of everyone so that we can believe everyone.
I got to thank you both. When we come back, Greg Jarrett, Joe DeGenova, later House Intel Committee Chair Devin Nunes, and we have a big announcement at the end of the show. You're going to want to hear it. Straight ahead. All right, joining us now with more on the Democrats' effort to derail the Kavanaugh nomination, author of the New York Times #1 best-selling book, The Russia Hoax, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, also in studio, rare appearance, U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., Joe DeGenova. Yeah, you've done great work for me in the past. I have a lot of people that hate me. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
You and Victoria are very strong people, great lawyers. You watch this unfold. I really, truly believe in the process that people are innocent until proven guilty, though. That is a fundamental right of ours. That's being tossed to the wind.
Of course it is.
I also agree that the Republicans are taking it seriously and that they're giving Professor Ford every accommodation, which I think is the right thing to do.
Have to under these circumstances. They've given her an opportunity to testify after this horrendous process which Senator Feinstein has foisted on the Senate and the American people in a complete abrogation of senatorial responsibility. This is one of the great shameful moments in the history of the Senate, and she should be ashamed of herself. And so should every Democrat on that committee, not just because what they're doing to Judge Kavanaugh, but because of what they're doing to the Constitution.
What about Bork? What about Clarence Thomas? Just like every 2-4 years in elections, Republicans, racist, sexist, they can run through the whole list, throw Granny over the cliff.
The Democrats care about one thing, power. That's what this is about, and they are trying to delay a vote on this nomination so that it does not occur. And the Republicans must not let that happen, because if they do not confirm Judge Kavanaugh, they will lose the Senate.
Senator Collins I don't always agree with her. She said it's not fair to either side.
It isn't.
She's right.
Right. And the explanation we're getting from Christine Blasey Ford doesn't make any sense. Citizens don't get to demand a federal investigation. There's nothing in the law or Senate rules that give a witness a right to insist on an FBI investigation
as it's not a federal crime.
as a condition precedent to testifying. It's baffling to me that Ms. Ford was more than willing to sit down to the Washington Post and tell her story without demanding that they conduct an investigation. Yet she will not sit down and talk to the Senate Judiciary Committee unless there is an investigation. Whatever the FBI might or might not find should have no bearing on her ability to simply tell the truth.
Let me ask you about another issue that is a constitutional issue. And I can't believe that Article 2, Section 1 of our Constitution, the president's in charge of the executive branch. He's asked to declassify. He's asked for unredacted information. FISA warrants 302s. We have former CIA directors and current members of the House and Senate saying defy the president's constitutional authority. They're doing that tonight, shredding the Constitution.
And there's a reason for it, because they have much to fear. Because Mr. Brennan, Mr. Clapper, Mr. Schiff is covering up for them. Mr. Schiff is a co-conspirator in an effort not only to undermine this president, but to destroy this president and violate the Constitution by subverting the election. He knows that what was done prior to the election and after was a criminal conspiracy with Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Strzok, Page, Baker, Prystack, McCabe, everybody involved in it. And what they are doing now is they don't want any of this information to come out, because if it does, and as it comes out gradually, it will show categorically that they engaged in a criminal conspiracy to frame a sitting president of the United States.
Will these people be indicted?
I expect that ultimately they will.
All of them?
All of them.
Craig? What do we expect when we get this information?
I'm told the information will come out next week, but in trenches, that is, in groups, a slow drip, drip, drip. I'm also told that Dan Coats, the DNI, as well as Christopher Wray, the FBI director, and Rod Rosenstein, who has much to hide and cover up here by virtue of his own misconduct, will still redact some portions in defiance of the president's order. If they in good conscience feel like they cannot do it, they should resign. In the alternative, the president should fire them for insubordination, for refusing a direct order.
So, this is a very scary time, because the Constitution is clear on executive power.
Article 2, Section 1,
and defying the President of the United States is a scary time. You guys have been amazing. Thank you both. Congrats on the book, and congrats. You're one. I don't want to ever be on the other side of you. You're pretty tough. All right, when we come back, Kristen Fisher has the latest on the president's order we were just talking about to declassify the FISA documents, the 302s. Then we will speak exclusively to the House Intelligence Committee Chairman, Devin Nunes. Also, we have a big announcement. It's about tomorrow. That's straight ahead. All right, joining us now with more on the Democrats' effort to derail the Kavanaugh nomination, author of the New York Times #1 best-selling book, The Russia Hoax, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, also in studio. Rare appearance, U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., Joe DeGeneva. Yeah, you've done great work for me in the past. I have a lot of people that hate me. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
You and Victoria are very strong people, great lawyers. You watch this unfold. I really, truly believe in the process that people are innocent until proven guilty, though. That is a fundamental right of ours. That's being tossed to the wind.
Of course it is.
I also agree that the Republicans are taking it seriously and that they're giving Professor Ford every accommodation, which I think is the right thing to do.
Have to under these circumstances. They've given her an opportunity to testify after this horrendous process which Senator Feinstein has foisted on the Senate and the American people in a complete abrogation of senatorial responsibility. This is one of the great shameful moments in the history of the Senate, and she should be ashamed of herself. And so should every Democrat on that committee, not just because what they're doing to Judge Kavanaugh, but because of what they're doing to the Constitution.
What about Bork? What about Clarence Thomas? Just like every 2-4 years in elections, Republicans, racist, sexist, they can run through the whole list, throw Granny over the cliff.
The Democrats care about one thing, power. That's what this is about, and they are trying to delay a vote on this nomination so that it does not occur. And the Republicans must not let that happen, because if they do not confirm Judge Kavanaugh, they will lose the Senate.
Senator Collins, I don't always agree with her. She said it's not fair to either side.
It isn't.
She's right.
Right. And the explanation we're getting from Christine Blasey Ford doesn't make any sense. Citizens don't get to demand a federal investigation. There's nothing in the law or Senate rules that give a witness a right to insist on an FBI investigation
it's not a federal crime.
as a condition precedent to testifying. It's baffling to me that Ms. Ford was more than willing to sit down to the Washington Post and tell her story without demanding that they conduct an investigation. Yet she will not sit down and talk to the Senate Judiciary Committee unless there is an investigation. Whatever the FBI might or might not find should have no bearing on her ability to simply tell the truth.
Let me ask you about another issue that is a constitutional issue. And I can't believe that Article 2, Section 1 of our Constitution, the President's in charge of the executive branch. He's asked to declassify. He's asked for unredacted information. FISA warrants 302s. We have former CIA directors and current members of the House and Senate saying defy the President's constitutional authority. They're doing that tonight, shredding the Constitution.
And there's a reason for it, because they have much to fear. Because Mr. Brennan, Mr. Clapper, Mr. Schiff is covering up for them. Mr. Schiff is a co-conspirator in an effort not only to undermine this president, but to destroy this president and violate the Constitution by subverting the election. He knows that what was done prior to the election and after was a criminal conspiracy with Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Strzok, Page, Baker, Prystep, McCabe, everybody involved in it. And what they are doing now is they don't want any of this information to come out, because if it does, and as it comes out gradually, it will show categorically that they engaged in a criminal conspiracy to frame a sitting president of the United States.
Will these people be indicted?
I expect that ultimately they will.
All of them?
All of them.
Craig? What do we expect when we get this information?
I'm told the information will come out next week, but in trenches, that is, in groups, a slow drip, drip, drip. I'm also told that Dan Coates, the DNI, as well as Christopher Wray, the FBI director, and Rod Rosenstein, who has much to hide and cover up here by virtue of his own misconduct, will still redact some portions in defiance of the president's order. If they in good conscience feel like they cannot do it, they should resign. In the alternative, the president should fire them for insubordination, for refusing a direct order.
So, this is a very scary time, because the Constitution is clear on executive power.
Article 2, Section 1,
and defying the President of the United States is a scary time. You guys have been amazing. Thank you both. Congrats on the book, and congrats. You're one. I don't want to ever be on the other side of you. You're pretty tough. All right, when we come back, Kristen Fisher has the latest on the president's order we were just talking about to declassify the FISA documents, the 302s. Then we will speak exclusively to the House Intelligence Committee Chairman, Devin Nunes. Also, we have a big announcement. It's about tomorrow. That's straight ahead.